Now, earlier today, the unrepentant terrorist Bill Ayers, he sat down with Chris Cuomo of ABC News for an interview this morning on Good Morning America.
Barack Obama was campaigning to be president. The analogy is if John McCain had an association, somebody had a coffee for him in his house to launch his political career, who was blowing up abortion clinics but never hurt anyone, you don't think that would be relevant?
I think the content is relevant, but let's go back again. The content of the Vietnam protest is a content where there were despicable acts going on, but the despicable acts were being carried out by our government. I never hurt or killed anyone. I was involved in the anti-war movement. I was a militant. I was part of the militant faction of opposing the war, and I've been quoted again and again as saying I don't regret it, and frankly, and saying I don't think we did enough, and I don't think we did enough.
Joining us tonight with reaction are three men who know a great deal about Bill Ayers. Larry Grathwohl, a one-time FBI informant. He infiltrated the Weather Underground when Ayers was the leader. Stanley Kurtz of the National Review. He has investigated the relationship between Bill Ayers and Barack Obama. And John Murtaugh, whose childhood home was bombed by the Weather Underground because his father was a judge presiding over a trial involving the Black Panthers. So, guys, welcome aboard. Thanks for being with us. Mr. Grathwohl, you infiltrated this group. You were there when, in fact, Bill Ayers was there. He had given you, because I've talked to you before, he had given you specific details. He even told you to pick the location of where to set off the bombs, showed you how to build bombs. Give us the details of your life with Bill Ayers.
Well, when the group went underground in early 1970, Bill was one of the members of the Central Committee. He was assigned people to the cells in various cities throughout the United States. I was assigned to Detroit, and we were planning to bomb the DPOA building in the 13th precinct. He told us what the bomb should contain: fence staples and nails in order to injure people and kill them. When I protested that one of the bombs would destroy a restaurant, Bill said, well, sometimes innocent people have to die in a revolution. Yeah. So his position that he never tried to intentionally hurt anyone is simply not true.
Yeah. So, but yes. Your time with them, he is, and as we can hear in this interview with Chris, and I thought Chris did a good job this morning, he is presently an unrepentant terrorist. He is a terrorist. There's no difference in sitting across the table from Tim McVeigh or an Al-Qaeda member, is there?
Not in my opinion.
No.
And the line he tries to draw that they simply were involved in property damage, as I've indicated, is simply not true. But even if that were the case, what's the justification for bombings? And that's a terrorism to me.
Well, it is terrorism. I mean, as we heard in the interview with Chris this morning, he doesn't regret it. And he said that before. We have an image of him stomping on the American flag, free as a bird, guilty as hell. What a great country. And then in the New York Times on September 11th of all days, that's the day he said, I don't regret setting bombs. I wish we did more. Now, you, John, your dad was a judge presiding over the Black Panther trial. There were how many bombs set outside your house?
4 bombs. February 21st, 1970. I was 9 at the time, Sean. The Weather Underground New York cell set 4 firebombs off at our house, 2 at the front door, 2 under the gas tank of the family car, trying to really create what today we'd call a car bomb.
Here we were in a situation where really a violent terrorist war was being waged against an entire population. We objected. We tried to end that war. And in trying to end it, we did cross lines of propriety, of legality, maybe even of common sense, but we never committed terror.
Why not? I have a tough time understanding this. How is what you did there, blowing up, detonating a bomb in the Pentagon, the New York Police Department headquarters, trying to target the Capitol, how is that not terrorism?
It's not terrorism because it doesn't target people, to either kill or injure.
That was William Ayers describing the actions of the Weather Underground, the terrorist group he once ran. We now continue with Larry Grathwohl, Stanley Kurtz, and John Murtaugh. Mr. Grathwohl, let me ask you, why wasn't he prosecuted by the FBI? What happened to that case? If he's guilty of all these things, why isn't he or wasn't he locked up?
Well, the FBI had used illegal wiretaps and surreptitious entries, and because of that, the courts threw the charges out against Bill. So Bill got off on a technicality. Believe me, he is guilty of the things that I witnessed him do.
You know that he's guilty of things, and yet the FBI basically blew the case by its actions, is what you're saying.
Ayers admits it.
Yes.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yes.
What
Yes,
should
that's
happen?
a- that's a
I mean,
fact.
there's a statute of limitations. Do you still want something to happen to Bill Ayers? I mean, what do you want to have happen to him? Do you want to? Should there
Well,
be
I
legal
think-
action? What do you want to do?
Well, I think if Bill Ayers is going to get on Good Morning America and claim that he wasn't a terrorist, that it's my obligation to stand up and say, yes, he was.
Yeah.
And not only was he...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, sir.
Not only was he a terrorist, but he tried to kill people. And he claims that they didn't.
Yeah. If you're going to bomb property, I mean, even threaten people, or there's a possibility of people getting hurt, that is terror. People get terrorized by that. Mr. Murtaugh, you're proof of that. I mean, you're.
Well, let's face it, Alan. When he bombed, when they bombed property, in my case, they bombed property that 5 people were sound asleep in the middle of the night. You know, for Mr. Ayers to say he crossed the line of propriety, let's go talk to the family of Officer Brian McDonnell, who was murdered in San Francisco with a Weather Underground bomb 4 days before my family was attacked. Let's ask them if that's crossing the line of propriety.
Was he personally involved in what happened to you and your family?
His wife took credit for the bombings in New York. The same night that my house was firebombed, they firebombed a building at Columbia University. They firebombed a police precinct in Greenwich Village. They firebombed 2 military recruiting stations in Brooklyn. And 6 months later, his wife, Bernadine Dorn, who was also involved in the San Francisco bombing 4 days earlier, took credit for the bombings in New York.
Where were you at the time your house was
Sound
hit?
asleep in my bed at the age of 9.
And how did you, as a 9-year-old, take in that information? What was your understanding back then?
My understanding was that at 3 o'clock in the morning, my mother had to pull me out of bed, run downstairs to the kitchen where my father was waiting, and we were afraid to leave the house because we didn't know who was outside.